Hey, what's going on, guys? From Gaming here, back to the video. Today's episode, we're going to take a quick look at the penetrating shot rogue for Season 9 of Diablo 4. So this build is going to synergize around both dash and shadow step. This is going to create big pools of enemies with specific runes that we're going to run that we'll talk about here in a minute. And then you'll be able to kind of blast them down with your penetrating shot. So it's really going to focus around Azure Wrath, which is going to be a unique that we'll talk about here in just a minute. And what you're really going for is the lucky hit chance that comes from that item that will kind of help us blast those enemies down through. There's a couple other things like modifiers are going to help our arrows kind of ricochet and whatnot. But overall, a really fun and satisfying build. Is actually really strong this season. It's actually moved up, I think, like 2 tiers from where it was last season. So I think right now this is actually one of the strongest rogue builds. Okay, let's talk about some of the seasonal stuff, right? So in Season 9, we're going to have something called Hordric Spells. So we're going to have 2 things here. We're going to have the Catalyst here on the left, and we're going to have our Infusion here on the right. So Disintegrate's going to be the Catalyst we're running, and Thunderous Particle is going to be the Infusion that we're running. So you'll earn both of these through the seasonal quest line. And then down here at the bottom is going to be our Infusions, and you'll actually unlock the Infusions while doing some of the Nightmare Dungeons this season. And then the Hordric Jewels over here on the right will replace your gems and some of your gear, and these can be crafted, and this is going to add a little bit additional power to our build. So again, our catalyst that we're going to be running is Disintegrate. It's got a pretty long duration, damage over 8 seconds. It also applies a slow effect. It's also got a pretty low cooldown, so just overall we're getting a lot of uptime running Disintegrate. And then we're going to be running this infusion here, Thunderous Particles. So the damage that we get from Thunderous Particles is going to be pretty nice, but the main reason we're actually running this is from the suppressor effect here. So the suppressor elite mobs are going to be the mobs with the blue circle around it that kind of dodge your range attacks. This is going to negate that effect. Now in terms of our arcana, right, and you get these from just farming nightmare dungeons, so just run more nightmare dungeons and you'll get them. Bloody Charm here, this is going to allow us to execute non-elite enemies. This is going to basically overall increase our clear speed. We're running Fractured Core, and this is going to remove those damage resistance aura effects. So sometimes at the start of a dungeon, you'll zone into a pack that just takes like literally 0 damage. This is going to help negate that. So overall, again, improving our clear speed. And then finally over here on the right, Frigid Heart. So your catalyst gains a specialized freeze effect that lasts 3.4 seconds. So this is going to give us a large damage modifier on anything that's frozen. And this will actually synergize really well, with our Azure Wrath, which we'll talk about here in just a moment. In terms of our jewels over here on the right, so this is going to give us both armor and resist all elements. So those are actually kind of difficult to come by. So this is super nice to get as a gem. It's also going to give us primary core stat, max life, and unhindered. So it's just overall the stat lineup is just really good with this gem. And it's also going to spawn some elites for like when you're running pits. This is going to help you progress through the pit faster as well. Increase some of that mob density. On the other 2 jewels, same story with the armor and resist all. So the elemental effect is really good because going back to Frigid Heart and going back to our Azure Wrath, again, we'll talk about it in a minute, but we want as much elemental damage as we possibly can because the majority of our damage is going to be from chill effects, freeze effects, and just cold damage in general. So this is a very good jewel for us to pick up. And then the bottom stone here is going to be used in most builds as well. It's going to beef up our ultimate and give us a big attack speed buff. So you're going to see this for several other builds besides this one, just OP in general. So moving on to our skills, right? Penetrating Shot is going to be our main ability. And we'll talk about here in a minute how we can kind of modify this to make it even stronger. By itself, it's not that strong, but once you get specific aspects with it, as well as specific uniques, it does become much stronger for us. Both Shadow Step and Dash are going to be our 2 main mobility skills, and it's going to allow us to get out of any sort of sticky situations. Shadow Step is also going to grant us Unstoppable, which is really important. If you do get frozen, you can always count on your Shadow Step to get you out of whatever effect it is, like a fear or a freeze. We'll also be running Caltrops, and you can see on one of the modifiers here, we're taking the Chill Effect modifier, so this is going to do a lot of damage and synergize with our build very well. And enemies that stand within our Caltrops are going to take increased damage from us as well. So the damage that it grants, the slow effect that it grants, and the chill effect that it grants is just a triple threat for us, essentially. Our ultimate's going to be here in the bottom left. It's going to be Shadow Clone. The Shadow Clone is going to do a whole bunch of damage. Going to deal 40% of our total damage. And we have some other aspects like our Vehement Brawlers aspect, which we'll talk about in a bit, that kind of synergizes with this well as no witnesses from our Paragon board. And then we also have Smoke Grenade over here on the right. So This is going to allow us to basically help CC enemies. It also gives us a pretty good damage modifier down here at the bottom. And this is also going to allow us to activate something called Alchemical Advantage, which is going to increase our lucky hit chance, which is very key for this build. Lucky hit chance is like the main stat that we're going for in this build. Okay, so taking a look at our talent tree, we are putting a couple points into Heartseeker here. We're really just putting points into this to grant us access essentially to these nodes down here. So we put 1 point into Penetrating Shot. Again, the damage from Penetrating Shot is not that significant, so we're only putting 1 point into it. We're going Enhanced Penetrating Shot, so we get additional chances for Penetrating Shot to proc, and then Advanced Penetrating Shot. It's going to help us melt elites and add a slow effect. For some additional durability, we're going 3 points into Sturdy, 2 into Siphoning Strikes. We're going 1 point into our Shadow Step. Again, this is going to grant us Unstoppable. This is a way that we can apply Vulnerable as well. And overall, just going to help us with mobility. Pretty much the same story down here for Dash. Dash actually does have a modifier with it, though, that will increase our critical strike chance for 5 seconds after use. So actually has a pretty decent damage amp with it. We're also running Caltrops. Again, going to add that chill effect, going to add a slow effect, and a damage modifier on top of it. More durability from Rugged here, so 3 points into that. And then these 3 nodes are going to be really geared more towards damage. So Unstable Elixirs, Trick Attacks, and Baelstra. So increased damage after invading. Dazing or stunning enemies is going to give us increased crit chance. And then our health pot will now stun and increase our damage by 24% for 10 seconds. Moving down the list, we have our Smoke Grenade that we talked about earlier. We get the damage modifier from it, as well as some ticking poison damage. 3 points into Malice, and then 3 points into Exploit. So just 2 damage amps, and then Malice is going to make our Vulnerable deal a little bit more damage. Very important here, 5 points into Dark Shroud. And we have a bunch of other things that we'll talk about later in the guide that will impact our Dark Shroud, especially through aspects and whatnot. We'll be able to kind of get free charges on our Dark Shroud. So very important to take this. Moving down to the next section, you can see we're putting 3 points here into Alchemical Advantage. Moving down to Alchemical Advantage, so dealing poison damage increases your attack speed and lucky hit chance by 10% for 8 seconds up to 50. So the way that we're able to proc this, again, is going to be through our Smoke Grenade, applying that poison damage. Putting 3 points into Deadeye, increased damage to distant enemies. 3 points into Frigid Finesse. So we're going to do increased damage to chilled enemies, which will come from one of our uniques. And then we will do double that damage against frozen enemies. So a very large damage amp there. Moving down the list, our ultimate Shadow Clone. This is another way that we'll be able to get Unstoppable, and we'll get some damage reduction from it. Overall, a win-win in terms of survivability and damage. 3 points into Second Wind. Spending energy is going to grant us a barrier. We'll actually have an aspect that impacts this. Anytime we have a barrier up, we're going to do more damage based on that aspect. So having barrier is very important in this build. And then also 3 points in Innervation, just increased chance to get energy. And then down here at the bottom, we're taking Close Quarters Combat. If you're not sure how Close Quarter Combat works, we have basically our skills are tagged between Marksman and Cutthroat, and each of them are going to provide a buff to us. So 15% attack speed for Marksman, 15% from attack speed. And if you can get them both up, you're going to get another modifier down here, kind of in the center. You'll do increased damage equal to 50% of damage versus close bonus up to 90%. So just to briefly touch on this, so our Marksman skill will be Penetrating Shot, and then our Cutthroat skills will be Shadow Step as well as our Dash. Now, it should be pretty easy to keep this up because Dash has so many charges. You're just kind of able to just dash through things and keep that modifier up. But just know you do want to be weaving in between your Marksman and your Cutthroat skills. It'll happen naturally. You really won't have to worry about it too much, to be honest. Okay, moving on to aspects. So some of our dungeon aspects, you can get Trick Shot and Enshrouding aspect from dungeons. Everything else down here are going to be aspects that you'll have to gamble for or just get drops from randomly. Thankfully, though, probably the core aspect that you need is Trick Shot, and you can farm this one out pretty easy. So whenever Penetrating Shot damages enemy, 2 additional arrows split off to the side. These side arrows deal percentage of Penetrating Shot's base damage and do not split. So this is going to give Penetrating Shot that sort of AoE effect. And we actually have a unique that will synergize with this super well. We'll talk about that here in a minute. We also have Enshrouding aspects. So using a healing potion gives you a free Dark Shroud shadow. So that's why we want to run Dark Shroud and max it out. We also get increased damage reduction for each shadow that we have. And then you can also drink your healing potion at full life to get those Dark Shroud stacks back. So very important to get these two, farm them as quickly as you can. We actually have another way to get Dark Shroud stacks as well. It's going to be through the Umbros aspect here. So critical strikes have a chance to grant a free Dark Shroud shadow. So it's going to be pretty easy to keep those Dark Shroud stacks up if you do have these two aspects. Wild Bolt aspect we're going to be taking to kind of group mobs. Every build needs a way to group mobs, so we're going to be able to handle that through Wild Bolt. And we talked about earlier about how we're able to get a barrier through our skill tree. So that's why we're running Conceited Aspect here, is to get that increased damage while we have that barrier active. Should be very easy to keep up. So essentially free damage from this aspect. We also have Accelerating Aspect. The more we crit, the more attack speed. And then we also have Vehement Brawlers aspect here for just essentially more damage. So these final three aspects are just damage amps essentially. Okay, going into our uniques here. So if you see at the very bottom, you can kind of see how you can farm some of these out. You can also gamble for them as well. But we have two that's going to come from the Beast in the Ice, and then we're going to have two that comes from Duriel or Andriel. So once you get this item, any stat that you get, but once you get this item, all your stats are going to revolve around lucky hit chance. And this item is good for a lot of reasons. It will also apply our vulnerable, and this will also chill enemies for us. So this is the first unique that you should be target farming, and pretty much all of our modifiers are going to synergize with Azure Wrath. So everything that we added in terms of like chill damage, freeze damage, elemental damage, it all is funneled into this Azure Wrath. So very, very important. I'm gonna actually have our Eagle Horn. This is probably the next most important one. And the reason for that is for this affix here. Penetrating shot bounces off walls and deals X amount more damage. So if we go back one slide here, we can see that this will synergize very well with Trick Shot. So Trick Shot will split, and then those splits have a chance to bounce off through Eagle Horn, bounce off walls. So this is going to give you this sort of chain reaction of just kind of arrows flying around everywhere, as well as the damage amp that comes with it as well. So all these penetrating shots are applying vulnerable, they're applying this cold damage, they're applying all those modifiers that we talked about earlier. That's where you get that insane AoE damage and clear. Now another that's going to be really good is Godslayer's Crown. So anytime you stun, freeze, or immobilize an enemy, you're going to pull enemies in. So anytime that we're, as we're applying these chill and freeze effects, we'll be grouping mobs in front of us so that we can nuke them down. Very, very important. And then over here, another good unique is going to be Fist of Fate. And this is going to be really good because of the lucky hit chance mainly. But to be honest, everything is just insanely good on lucky hit, crit, attack speed, vulnerable, and then a chance for your spells to deal increased damage. So in terms of priority, I'd probably go Azure Wrath, Eagle Horn, Fist of Fate, and then Godslayer's last. I think that the lucky hit that comes from Fist of Fate is just too OP, and I think it does give it a slight edge over the Godslayer's Crown. Going into Mythics, so your Turbo Biz is going to be Shroud of False Death, pretty much like every other class in the game. The +1 to all passives and the +160 to all stats is just too OP. And then also the increased movement speed is just going to help anybody trying to farm anything. You can just very efficiently farm with this item. Up next is going to be Air Perdition. So this is really strong for that lucky hit chance, as well as the movement speed and crit. I mean, everything here is just really strong. And then the last mythic, if you do get really lucky, would be Ring of Starless Sky for that primary resource reduction, as well as the lucky hit chance that comes with it. In terms of runes, the best combination is going to be these two here. So just reading this out, every 5 skills that we cast is going to give us 300 offering, and we're going to spin that 300 offering on a vortex that's going to pull people in, and we can nuke them down. If you have a great way to group mobs already and you don't think you need these, you can actually go for the damage amp down here. So we're going to get 100% lucky hit against non-healthy enemies. When that procs, we're going to gain 15 offering. And then after we get 400 offering, we're going to be able to drain all of our primary resource and funnel that into a big penetrating shot, and it will deal 100% increased damage. So these are going to be the glyphs that we're running: Devious, Fluidity, Control, Headhunter, Canny. So since we are applying chill effects, Devious is going to make sense to get that increased damage modifier on them. Fluidity is just really good with Rogue in general. Anytime we cast an agility spell, we get a big damage amp. Control, you deal increased damage to chilled enemies and even more against frozen enemies. Headhunter is going to help us nuke down elites. And then Canny over here, since we're not running a super physical damage heavy build, we're going to be able to benefit from this modifier pretty easily. Okay, taking a quick look at our Paragon board here. We'll just start at the beginning here. So we talked already about all the glyphs that we're running, but you can see that we're running Devious here at the start. Increased damage from our chill effects. Going up here, we're going to be running no witnesses. So that's going to be the board that we go for with that legendary node, and then fluidity as our glyph. From here, we can go straight up or to the right. We'll just go straight up first. This board gonna be Danse Macabre. So casting our mobility spells like our dash, gonna give us a decent damage amp. We're gonna be running the candy glyph on this board. Going directly to the right, we're running Headhunter along with Exploit Weakness to increase damage versus vulnerable enemies. Directly below that, we'll be running Control along with Eldritch Bounty. So this is gonna give us a little bit more cold damage, as well as increase our resistances a little bit more. So that's pretty nice. So yeah, guys, that's going to be the end of this video. Really fun build. It's going to be very powerful. It does scale very well into the late game. Again, this has kind of made a comeback here in Season 9. Just make sure as you do move up in the tournament tiers that your armor and your resistor cap, you're using your defensive consumables, you're kiting back with your chill effects. And if you are still struggling with survivability, you know, maximum life is a pretty strong stat for us as well. And remember that the main damage reduction from this build does come from our Dark Shroud. If you guys enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. See you in the next one.